tell you a little bit about what's on my little mind today. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that for anyone who sold their chametz through me, I can't tell you about anybody else. But if you sold it through me at 8:45 this evening, 5 minutes after Pesach ends, because my neighbor that I just walked next door, boom, it's done. You will have all your chametz back. That's if I can negotiate. If they want to keep it, you can't have it. But you can go and eat other chametz. So if if you want to eat pizza, that's whatever. You do what you want. But after 8:45. Um, I I hope everybody had a good Pesach. Still have a few more hours to go. I've gone through already 4 or 5 bottles of laxative. I'm doing fine. Let my people go. Anyway, has anyone ever noticed that the world seems to be changing a lot more quickly
Yeah.
than at any other time in history?
Yes.
You have. Okay, that's good to know because I have too, and I think we all have. So, for all of us, let me just make sure. All right, good. There we go. It's just amazing. I don't think anybody likes what we see. If you do, you're probably very much alone in this world, or you're such an optimist you don't see anything other than the good that will come, and it will. But if you're looking at right now, newspaper subscriptions are fewer because we know the news right when it happens. Don't need to wait till tomorrow morning for the newspaper. Governments are bloating, getting so big, and large corporations are growing larger than some governments. And large corporations are taking over, which is, I'm not complaining, I'm just stating a fact. Global stock markets and bankruptcies are both skyrocketing. We are told our military is the strongest with the best arsenal in the world, and yet we still fear for our security. To go from bad to worse, cities and towns across the country want to reduce the size of their already handcuffed police departments. Courts are releasing violent criminals without bail, and our borders allow everyone to enter our country along with ruthless drug cartels and brutal gangs. Well over 150,000 Americans of every age and of all walks of life, doesn't matter how old you are or what you do for a living, are going to die this year. Over 150,000 are going to die from drug overdoses. So, the U.S. unemployment rate is considered acceptable, but everything costs too much, so nobody can afford much. If the IRS would take 100% of each of our total income and the total income of each corporation in the United States every day for 1 year and apply it to the national debt, we would still owe over $20 trillion to China, India, Japan, and many other countries at the end of the year. At the end of our first Jewish festival, Sukkot and Simchat Torah, you remember, it was October 7th, our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael were raped, murdered, taken hostage, dragged through the streets by their hair. Infants were beheaded in their cribs right in front of their mothers. Mothers' breasts were cut off with dull machetes so as not to be able to nurse their children. And that's only some of the unspeakable brutality those monsters known as Hamas perpetrated on us. It's only a few. Hard to believe, right? And they not only did it, they videotaped it and they put it up on social media for all to see. Disgusting. Today, as I'm talking, colleges and universities are protesting against Israel, celebrating Hamas. In Columbia University, they barricaded themselves into the administration building and won't come out. Supporting Hamas, those monsters who beheaded infants in their cribs. That's okay with them. And raping women, that's okay with them. There are protests all over the country against Israel, calling Israel the aggressor and Satan, with the press acting as cheerleaders. Sure, it's clickbait. The more they talk and the more they show, the more people click and watch. Almost everyone accuses Israel, the victim, of bringing genocide to the Palestinians, where the inflated number of Gazans killed is between 35 and 40,000. That's a lot of people, 35 to 40,000. It's most likely inflated, but I want to put this into perspectives. How many times have we heard the news media report how China puts their Islamic population in World War II style concentration camps, while at the same time supporting the Islamic country of Iran? Why does China do this? Why do they support Iran and still put their own population of Islamic people in camps, concentration camps? Because China needs Iran's oil. Simple as that. Do you hear that on the media? Perhaps because there are no Jews involved is why nobody talks about it. How much time does the news media invest in talking about all the millions of their civilians killed by governments of Syria, Burma, Myanmar, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Nigeria, Central African Republic, Somalia, Iraq and Iran, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and North Korea? At most, 30 to 40,000 were killed in Gaza versus several million killed in those other countries. And the world focuses on Gaza? Is there anyone so naive as to expect that the media will focus on government genocide when the Jews are not involved, even though the deaths are in the multi-millions? Other than the genocidal satanic state of Israel, and I put those words in quotes, what does the press focus on? Removing male and female references from our vocabulary, the age of a child. What is the age of a child? What should it be to begin gender transitioning? And abortion rights. That's what the press talks about. Not about millions of people being killed. That doesn't matter. And I fully recognize that many people find these issues important. I'm not minimizing them, but come on. None of these issues will matter if the atrocities mostly funded by Iran get more of a foothold in the world. And there is no question that evil is spreading. And if you go to Iran and you're a woman and you do not have your hair covered, you're shot in the street. So what should I call you? That's so important. Historically, when things got this bad, people flocked into the houses of worship. But other than a remarkable growth in Hinduism and Islam, can't explain it, membership in Christian and Jewish congregation is on a rapid decline. This trend is not limited to the United States, as it is happening globally. In general, people no longer view religion as the safe haven as it once did, even though it is. So why is religion losing followers? After thousands of years of people turning to God when things get bad, why this time are we ignoring God? Why this time are the citizens of the world placing religion lower and lower on our priority list when we would expect that the world's financial challenges and growing terrorism should be pushing us even faster toward God? Well, I think I understand what is happening and what we can do about it. But what the world is experiencing is a fundamental shift in our society due to our younger generations. Yes, these younger generations are having a profound influence on how the entire world operates. And this includes the Jewish people. No doubt about it. And whose fault is it? If I point my finger at someone, there'll be three more pointing right back at me. You know how many Jewish children today are not having B'nai Mitzvah? They don't want them. They don't even want the party that goes with it. They just want to stay home and play on their video games and be on social media. They don't care about anything. We find the largest population in history who cover their bodies with tattoos and pierce everything they can. Yeah, most people don't, but more and more certainly are. The younger generations get their news from social media that argues that any government is here to provide for the moral good and that religion is nothing more than repackaged Greek mythology. These younger generations are now making up a significant portion of the workforce. They include those who are, let's say, under 45 years of age, and they are the students in the world's high schools, all of them, and colleges, all of them. They make up nearly half of the world's population right now. They make up most of the world's middle management and soon will be the senior managers of corporations, big and small. Remember, they are being taught to believe that government is the source of morality and the arbiter of basic human rights, and that religion, well, repackaged Greek mythology. You see the pattern? Where does Judaism fit into this? Will Islam continue to succeed, or will it begin to shrink like the other religions, only to be replaced with the fastest growing religion, the atheistic belief in government? I don't know the answer. But like it or not, that is the state of our world as we sit here today, as we come here to Yizkor, as we come here to remember those who tried to make the world a little bit better than the way they found it, and to give us a little more than they had. That may be their legacy, but what's going to be ours? Based on the world we are leaving behind, who will come to remember us and the loved ones we are here to remember? Who? The government? If we do nothing to change the situation, the honest answer is nobody. Nobody. So before we get all upset, we need to look at the facts. As Jews, we have always been a minority since the beginning. This isn't new for us. We have a lot of experience being a minority. And our existence has been challenged all the time throughout our long history, and in ways much worse than what we are experiencing now. Somehow, no matter how dark things were, we have always figured out how to survive. We did it by focusing on our 4,000 years of Ledor Vador, from generation to generation. We're a 4,000-year-old people. But this time, maybe it's a little different. Until now, the world has never seen the next generation run away from religion in general, and Judaism in particular, the way it is now. Since the first Pesach held in Eretz Yisrael after the exodus from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, we have never seen our Jewish young people question the need to have a Jewish homeland the way they are now. I stand in disgust when I see our Jewish young people on college campuses protesting arm in arm with the Palestinian supporters against their own homeland. And it's based on nothing but lies marketed by the most evil people on the planet. It's so much easier to market hate than love. So much easier. And we all know what is going to happen to the printed newspaper. The young folks might use paper to clean up after themselves, but they leave that, they don't. They leave that for someone else. They leave messes wherever they go. The only thing they use paper for is to blow their noses and to clean their backsides. That's it. For everything else, instead of paper, they use their phones and tablets. Their entire world is made up of their growing list of strangers that they think are friends on social media. And they do violent cloud-based video games, and they make friends with those people who are playing as well. And anti-American and anti-Semitic rants they listen to on the Chinese-owned TikTok. As a result of this instant, always available technology, all the time it's available, wherever you are. This technology is devoid of physical consequences. No matter what happens, you're still there. These youth have become the largest and most unified generation in the history of the world. This is happening during a time of the greatest change in history. Unlike my parents, who were part, and some of you, who were part of the greatest generation, who came together to rid the world of barbarism, totalitarianism, communism, fascism, socialism, and Nazism. Unlike them, the rest of the baby boomers, like me, who became enticed by material goods and the need to achieve our 15 minutes of fame, these young people are social with global reach. They have strangers, total strangers they've never met, who are considered friends. They're virtual friends, but they're friends. And they're all over the world. Yes, these young folks ignore and break down boundaries. Maybe that's good. But being global, countries are political entities that have little value to these kids, to these youth, not just kids. After all, they live in cyberspace, not in a political state. They prefer to use cryptocurrency to hide their assets from the government that they worship. They are so globally powerful that U.S. high-tech and several countries are actually waging political and financial wars. Google, Apple, Microsoft are always at war with the European Union over something. For the first time in history, corporate entities are challenging totalitarian and democratic world powers. Make no mistake about it, this is a war, but it is a new kind of war. Nobody shoots bullets. It's the kind of war our young folks love to fight because they were raised on virtual video games where everyone gets killed, but nobody gets hurt and nobody dies. In their global virtual world, consequences are painless and temporary, and they last only until the game is restarted. This is how they get to learn about consequences. restart the game, and all the consequences go away. How do we get out of this mess? How do we make sure that our Judaism is never left behind by our Jewish youth who worship not God, but Intel, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Meta, TikTok, and X, the company formerly known as Twitter? And I know I left some out. But to try and understand what we have to do, we have to look back through our amazingly insightful Jewish liturgy. First, there was Adam and Eve. They went out and gathered their food. They picked the fruit and vegetables that readily grew on trees, vines, and on the ground. It was easy for them. They just picked it up, plucked it down. They needed no tools of any kind. There were no consequences until God told them they shouldn't eat the fruit, and they didn't listen. And then the punishment was that they had to change from not only being able to gather food, but they had to hunt for animals as well. This was aided by new technologies called tools. The human being could not capture, kill, and eat animals without these tools. They also had to learn how to make fire so they could cook the food so they wouldn't get sick and die, as so many did prior to that. As time went on, the consequences for failure got worse and worse and more severe, especially when the animals fought back when trying to be caught and when other people wanted to take the food others hunted. The tools turned into weapons of offense and defense. Society needed to come up with rules, and that gave birth to the universal laws of Noah, the Noahide laws. Then we saw what happened to Esau, the great hunter. Like Adam and Eve, he ignored the rules, and he allowed his hunting to get in the way of doing what God had told him to do. He cared much more about the hunt than anything else. So he sold his birthright to Yaakov for a bowl of lentils. Can you believe it? A bowl of lentils. And the consequences were much more than he anticipated. Consequences. Then Bnei Israel went into the promised land. Again, they started to take the laws of God for granted. As a consequence, they were forced to become more agrarian. They had to plant and grow their food in addition to hunting and gathering. This only became possible because of new technologies that were created and were able to be used to till the soil and bring water to irrigate the fields. Consequences of times before. Eventually, technology became so good that the people could move further and further away from sources of water. They learned how to make the land fertile wherever they went. They always moved in groups, and these groups were called tribes. These tribes had similar goals and values, but they relied on each other to succeed. Originally, these tribes kept Torah in their center. Because the technology had allowed them to move further and further away from the temple, the only place where sacrifices could be offered, by the way, the tribes became very disconnected. The consequence was that the temple was destroyed. And to survive, sacrifice was replaced with a new spiritual technology called prayer and the construction of local places of worship. Then something else happened. The spoken teachings that were available, we call them the Mishnah, were written down. And the writing technology kept getting better. Commentaries were added to the Talmud, and soon other Jewish texts became available, especially with the advent of the printing press that changed everything. We saw Judaism take on many new twists and turns. The consequences were that the tribes were replaced with different philosophies of Judaism. Now, we have Sephardim and Ashkenazim and Mizrahi for a long, long time. And now we have Hasidism, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform. Then the Orthodox broke into ultra-Orthodox, Orthodox, and modern Orthodox. Then the Conservative broke into traditional Conservative, Conservative, and Reconstructionist. Then the Reform, well, they're becoming more moderate, while the Conservatives are moving more liberal. Hasidism has splintered into many different sects, including the Belts, Babov, Breslov, Lubavitch, Satmar, and so many others. The ultra-Orthodox have even spawned a liberal movement called Jewish Renewal, or Aleph. And each of these different groups have learned to use communication technology in different ways. The ones who exploit this technology the best seem to be enjoying the most success. But the ones who shun technology, they're becoming self-limiting. The consequence is that it is very difficult to know what a Jew is anymore. So here we are. We're at a point in time when technology has replaced real with virtual. Our tribes are no longer local, but global. And we now call them friends and gamers, in quotations. Our society of flesh and bones is being replaced by artificially intelligent social networks. Our parents and siblings are being replaced with virtual families, and our Jewish traditions are being portrayed as Greek mythology. What will be the consequences of this? Do you really think it's going to end well? Does anybody think it's going to end well? The truth is, younger folks are much more knowledgeable than any prior generation. But are they ready to face what is in the future? Especially with AI taking over, the artificially intelligent machine learning, whatever you want to call it. No, it doesn't help you prepare for what comes. There is a huge hole in their lives left by the void of not understanding the great value that spirituality can be in your life. There is no doubt that a society that gets its morals and ethics from graphic video games and all the killing and destruction with no lasting consequences will ultimately support those who do that in real life, who watch and support monsters, who behead infants right in front of their mothers in their cribs and take their arms and legs off. They don't think there's any consequences, so I'll support it. That's my normal. That's what I do every day. I kill people in my video games. The downfall of these young folks will come from not having suffered consequences in their lives, real consequences. Kind of like greed and avarice hurt our generation or my generation. It wasn't good. We got too greedy. Yes, just like everyone who came before them, they need to learn the hard way that there are real consequences, physical and mental consequences to everything they do. Perhaps this is why teenage pregnancies are so prolific right now. To make matters worse, most of these mothers who are too young to be married, who are pregnant, have to take DNA tests just to find out which of their boyfriends is the father. Today is Yizkor. It is one of 4 days during the year that our Jewish community sets aside to remember those who helped us become who we are today. We remember our grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. We remember our parents, our siblings, our spouses, and our children who are no longer with us, but who learned the reality of consequences the hard way. Some of the people we are here to remember were members of the greatest generation. They did what was extraordinary to ensure freedom. My generation, the baby boomers, desecrated what that greatest generation left us by substituting our greed and avarice for their unselfishness. My generation has spent more money and exploited more of the earth's resources than everyone who came before us combined. It's disgusting. As a consequence, and we are now seeing it, we are leaving the next generations and their children with quite a mess. While the greatest generation gave my generation so much, we weren't satisfied with that. We squandered everything that they gave us and then some. So how do we get out of this mess? The politics, I can't deal with that. That reluctantly has to be left to the politicians. And like we always say, throw the bums out and replace them with the right people. Hopefully that happens. But I know better, it won't. But what about the spiritual part? However, it is. We must address it. And it has to be addressed by us, nobody else. If it is to be, it is up to me. So just as when the temple was destroyed and the Jewish people were forced to spread out all over the world, somehow, I don't know how, we Jews figured it out. How do we come back together again? Took 2,000 years, but we figured it out. And just as popular as those false prophets and bogus messiahs were as they arose and attracted some of our people, we still survived. Every time the world thought the Jew was down and out, something strengthened us and we survived. Even though the Greeks outlawed the study of Torah, we survived. Even though the Spanish and Portuguese Christians conducted inquisitions to eliminate the Jew, we survived. Even though the Russians had pogroms to eliminate the Jew, we survived. Even though the Nazis built death camps to eliminate the Jew, we survived. In the same way, even though governments all over the world are trying to position religions as nothing but mature forms of Greek mythology, and the world is uniting in its anti-Semitic hatred, I know without a doubt, with perfect faith, that we will survive in spite of it. And you know it too. How do I know this? And how do you know this? We know it because we know what our secret weapon is. And we have it. We have a secret weapon that is more powerful than any technology that could ever be devised. We have a secret weapon that is more powerful than any government. We have a secret weapon that is more powerful than any military. We have a secret weapon that is more powerful than any other ever created. And if I share it and tell you what it is, you will immediately know what I mean. But you got to promise. You got to use it wisely. We cannot abuse it. It's this secret weapon that we have can be very rewarding and yet very dangerous too. The secret weapon that we have can be used for good. It can be used for evil. The secret weapon that we have can move the world. And the secret weapon that we have can stop an enemy in its tracks. There is nothing more powerful than this secret weapon that we have. We have seen our secret weapon extend the lives of those who were written off for dead. We have seen our secret weapon used by Moshe in Mitzrayim and Egypt, and by the armies of the American Revolution and those of the greatest generation, and even today in Eretz Yisrael, to ensure the freedom and to eliminate tyranny. The secret weapon is amazing. But I assure you, it is very real, and history proves it, that it really works. And you know what? Our secret weapon cannot be contained by the limitations of a virtual reality, by social networks, or even the confines of cyberspace and artificial intelligence. Our secret weapon has been around for 4,000 years and is found in the memories of those who are no longer with us. Our secret weapon is the Jewish faith, that there is a God, that there is one God, and that God is our God. This God takes care of our souls, both when we are alive and after we're gone. Takes care of our souls. I have perfect faith that the souls of our loved ones are alive and are with God. I don't question it. I have perfect faith that that's the case. That is the Jewish secret weapon, because God needs us as much as we need God. We believe in perfect faith, that the Jewish people survived the Inquisitions, the pogroms, and even the Holocaust, and even those Hamas. I'll save the word I'm thinking because it's not nice. Why? Because we were saved because of the souls who were taken from us, and those who live among us came together in perfect faith with God. For those younger generations who believe that God is a mature form of Greek mythology, when we combine the power of our secret weapon, and when we build on each other's perfect faith in God, how could it not overcome their misguided perspectives? How could it not? For the question of who will say Yizkor for us when we are gone, take our secret weapon home with us today. Bring it out front. Show it to everybody. Our faith will only get stronger by sharing it with each other, because having perfect faith in God has no limits. As you and I share our perfect faith in God with others, there is no possibility that anyone will have the strength to ignore us. As for those younger generations, ani ma'amin. I have perfect faith that they too will learn to love our God, the same God of those we came here to Yizkor today. In return, we will love God and God will love us even more. And with that, I want to wish you all a Chag Sameach.